Learning Disabilities Child Find Student Study Team. So communication with parents, be factual, not emotional, and be honest but not brutal. Ask the parents about reading at home, ask them about their expectations for their child, ask about homework, ask parents to participate as part of a student study team. Explain the purpose of the student study team, which is to help teachers and parents find ways to help and support students in their academic, social, and behavioral progress. The purpose of the parent preparation sheet. So when parents complete the preparation sheet, they become an active part of the student study team, and by filling out the questions, parents not only help the SST, but their child. So predictable reactions or feelings from parents, there can be shock or denial, anger, guilt, or blaming, resignation, depression, or acceptance. So student study team process. They gather student data, they plan strategies to assist the student within the resources of the general education program, monitor student progress, build trust between the parent and school or parents, and then make referrals for formal evaluation when needed. Student summary sheet. The name of the student, teacher, school, primary language, grade level, the parent's name, and all team members and the dates of the meeting are required in the SST sheet. It is also required, or should state that the student strengths, known information and modifications, concerns, questions, brainstorm strategies, prioritized actions, and who is responsible and when they're responsible. And this should be followed up within 3 to 6 weeks. Role of accommodations. During the SST meeting, it is important to consider accommodations and modifications, using the list to the right, and then finding local resources such as tutoring programs are great to use as well. Digital accommodations. There are many kinds of digital accommodation, like computer games that have phonetic, math, or reading skills, and they also contain instant visual rewards. Other types would be laptops used to type up notes, record lectures, or complete assignments, and then digital communications, so picture boards, writing boards, or digital text readers. Sensory accommodations, there's different types of seats, for instance, the seat wedge, sensory feedback mats, manipulatives, headphones, and then different types of clothing, such as weighted vests. Learning disabilities in the least restrictive environment. So PL 94-142 least restrictive environment is the Education of All Handicapped Children Act, which was in 1975. The intent was to provide each handicapped child 3 to 21 years with a free and appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment. Mandates were expanded in 1990 to include a broader range of disabilities, and then also in 1990 it was reauthorized as part of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Parental rights in the law. Parents have the right to require confidential treatment of their child's records, review and inspect records, have copies of all records and documentation, release records to non-school personnel, when permission is obtained by the school in writing, be notified in advance at least 10 days of any meeting pertaining to their child, and they can bring anyone they wish to the meeting, and they may tape record meetings, and then they can request an assessment for their child. They also must be appraised of the assessment tools that are being used, and those tools have to be in the child's own language, request an independent evaluation at the public's expense if they do not agree with the district's evaluation, have input into the development of the individual education plan, IEP, refuse services or placement in special education, have an independent, fully paid private school placement if it's deemed necessary, and then request and have a fair hearing if disagreements arise regarding to identification, placement, or services. So Ronker versus Walter, this was a court case, and the court required a school to serve a child with a disability in a non-segregated setting when the necessary supports could be provided to make that setting appropriate. So, least restrictive environment. Law 34 CFR 300.116E. It requires that options be available in general education programs within our general education facilities, and a process must be followed by the IEP team, which includes an explanation of the extent to which the student will not participate with non-disabled students in the general education program and extracurricular and other non-academic activities. And furthermore, education assignments are not to be based on the label describing the student's disability or the availability of programs. So, Universal Dedication Vision Statement. So, the Michigan State Board of Education adopted its Universal Education Vision Statement in October of 2005. It includes a principle that honors the rights of students to learn together. Highly qualified provisions. So, those are the two laws there. They require schools to employ only highly qualified special education teachers, must have several qualifications related to providing specialized instruction, must also have content matter qualifications that meet the highly qualified standards of No Child Left Behind. This means that a teacher who teaches a separate special education class must also be qualified to teach the age-appropriate general education curriculum. So, general education curriculum requires schools to offer all students access to the general curriculum according to a set of standards. In Michigan, this means that special education classes must offer students with disabilities access to curriculum that addresses the grade level content expectations up to grade 8 and the high school graduation standards grades 9 to 12. Least restrictive environment in Section 504. Section 504 mandates education in the least restrictive environment. It states that if students are placed away from a regular school, the facilities, equipment, and programs available in the new placement must be comparable to those in the regular school setting. Learning disabilities, assessment, and planning. So, multidisciplinary team process, a multi-step process of diagnosing a child with learning disabilities. The formal evaluation follows a team approach with the teacher as well as other school personnel. Formal evaluations include psychoeducational testing, observations, samples of student work. Each member of the multidisciplinary team contribute information to the report, and team members include the school psychologist, teachers, special education specialists, parents, and a school administrator. Larry P. versus Riles, 1979 California court case. There's a controversy over whether IQ tests are racially and culturally discriminatory. The court ruled that the intellectual functioning of an African American child must be gauged by their adaptive behaviors, personal history and development, classroom performance, and academic achievement, and not by IQ tests. So the Common Intelligence Quotient tests are instruments chosen to assess IQ. They should be age-appropriate and free of cultural bias. The most popular IQ tests are the Wechsler Intelligence Scales for Children, Stanford-Binet Intelligence Scale, and the Kaufman Assessment Battery for Children. So, WISC-IV is the most widely used individual measures of intelligence. There's 3 tests in the series: the Wechsler Preschool and Primary Scale of Intelligence, which is 4 to 6.5 years of age, the Wechsler Intelligence Scale for Children, which is 6 to 16, and then the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale, which is 16 and up. These contain several subtests to measure verbal and performance skills, and tests are individually administered. Verbal test has 13 subtests, which can be seen below and include information, similarities, vocab, digit span, picture arrangement, coding, symbol search, all kinds of things. 3 commonly used academic assessments. So the first one is the Brigance Diagnostic Inventory of Basic Skills Revised. It's kindergarten through grade 9. It tests readiness, reading, language arts, and mathematics, pinpoints specific skills that the child has not learned, and is helpful in writing IEP goals. The Peabody Individual Assessment Test Revised is norm-referenced and standardized. Comes in 2 levels. Level 1 is kindergarten to grade 1, and level 2 is grades 2 to 12. It measures general knowledge fund, reading recognition, reading comprehension, spelling, written expression, and knowledge of mathematics. And then the Woodcock-Johnson Psychoeducational Battery 3 is norm referenced. It's ages 2 to 90. Extensive testing of reading, decoding, comprehension, of mathematical calculation, and of dictation and writing. It also measures the understanding of content in science, social studies, and humanities. Purpose of observation and data collected. It's important to note that observations are done by the school or the special education specialist. 2 in-class observations are necessary, but 3 are preferred. It's better if the student is unaware of the observation, so a true picture of their everyday performance can be captured. So observation write-up includes the lesson observed, the student's responsibilities during the lesson, describe the degree of participation, stick to the facts. You should record verbatim any answers, questions, or comments the student makes. Ask for the teacher evaluation of the student's work. Ask if the participation observed is typical, and include a time on task report. Observable data are statements about the way a student organizes work, a statement regarding handedness and fine motor control, statement about verbal fluency, statement of activity level, what skills were demonstrated in the lesson, cues about level of language functioning via quotes, perceptual speed, statement concerning the status of grooming, allergies, and so on, and be careful to avoid exaggeration in this section. Patterns of strengths and weaknesses. When provided with learning experiences and instruction appropriate for age or state-approved standards, the student does not achieve adequate for the student's age, and the student does not meet state-approved grade level standards. So those would be patterns of weakness, and strength would be the opposite of that. They exhibit a pattern of strength and weakness, and can be in performance, achievement, or both. And this is relative to age, state-approved grade level standards, or intellectual development that is determined by the MET, so Multidisciplinary Education Team. Discrepancy model. This model was previously used to award services to students with disabilities. Now it's no longer considered the only method for determining eligibility. Originally, students had to show a large discrepancy between their test scores in order to receive special education services. There's problems with this, one being that only a severe difference in test scores could cause a child to be labeled as LD. This system has left a lot of low-functioning students out of special education because they never had one high test score to compare with a low one, and this model is not a complete measure of a student's progress, and it is no longer the sole method of determining funding for students who are struggling. And that is the end.